It's been a few months since my last garage update from the Shmuseum and things have been changing fast. Today, there's something new to reveal and we need a full overview of the cars that are due to arrive soon, plus some surprise changes and departures coming up. At the moment, we have a few gaps and notable absentees here, but with some big life changes ahead, there are some cars to take a very serious look at and decide if it's worth them staying. Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello and welcome back to the channel. Let's have a full update on the Shmeemobiles. Before we get this cover pulled back to reveal the new daily driver that's underneath, I want to share with you some updates because over the last couple of months, I've been away a lot. The last 3 months, we've only seen, I think, two and a bit videos shot right here because I've been in the United States with the Ford GT and with the Mustang Dark Horse. Then in the middle, flew back over to take the Roma Spider down to Italy to go and spec the SF90XX, to also go to visit the reveal of the Ferrari F80 at Finale Mondiale and have a ton of action with all of that. But after a busy year, a lot of the cars are absent. We're missing about 5 or 6 of the collection right now, out for servicing and different things like that. And with that comes some very big bills. Cars like these have cost a lot, and I'm going to tell you about some of those in just a second. Now, you might have seen some changes on the channel recently because I've been trying to make sure that every single video that you see on this channel is something incredible, an amazing car, something super exciting, an experience, and to know that that video is going to be well worth your time. On a personal level, we've had exclusive car registry, ECR, growing like you wouldn't believe, which as a result, of course, consumes a lot more time. We've now got a team of double digits, which has moved a little bit more internationally, which is very exciting as well, but it means I need to plan a little bit with what's happening here, what's happening with some of the collection, and there might be some more things for the future that I haven't actually really mentioned yet, which I'd like to give you some teasers about today as well. One car that's missing, with quite a funny story, is the Zenvo. Something that's not missing though, by the way, is Shmoo the Cow. He is back in the Shmee shop. Grab one now. We have some stock now that we've returned. You can get one of these along with the sticker sheets, the air fresheners, other things as well. And stay tuned because we're going to have another member of the limited edition Shmoo the Cow family very soon. But do grab yourself one of those if you'd like to in the build up to Christmas. On the topic of the Zenvo though, remember we took it down to Italy for Supercar Owners Circle, did some drag races with the GT Black Series as well, and then went to join Selected Car at Spa. Got to drive the car on Spa-Francorchamps, the most insane experience. After that, it went back to Denmark for its second-year service. The TSRS is already 2 years old, but I decided to leave it with them because every time the car is with them, they do some upgrades, they do some testing miles, they just find out a little bit more with the plan that it would return back to the UK this week. Unfortunately for me, Mr. Turbo Transport, who would normally bring the car back home, has been out of action this week, so we've got to just postpone a little bit, maybe in the next week or two. The TSRS will return back to base. The car that was living right underneath the Shelby GT500, you might remember from the last time I was at home, was of course my Lotus Emira First Edition. That has now departed with BOTB. We had the free competition giveaway. The winner, however, elected to choose the cash alternative, always an option, and that means that the car has in fact gone for sale with HWM Sports Cars. At the time of recording, they have my old Emira for sale with them exactly as it was when it left from here. So I'll be looking forward to seeing who picks that up. If you're interested, do go and grab it as well. As much as I miss the car, I'm looking forward to seeing someone else enjoying it going forwards. You'll notice though we have no yellow in the collection right now. I'm going to get to the GT Black Series a little bit later on because it's done a lot of miles and it's a difficult one, but we'll get to that. When it comes to servicing though, this one, the SLS Black Series. It wasn't long ago that I drove it down to Italy for Mille Miglia, the most amazing adventure. Of course, put a lot of miles on it, some hard miles at that, and as a result, it had quite the laundry list of things. I think we should get a cold start, pull it forwards, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what this is costing me to keep going. I've got a cheat sheet here because it is quite the list. So the first thing that the car needed, like every year, was an annual service. This was the service B, so you have A and B services depending what it needs. But remember, it's now coming up to being 11 years old. So at the service, it had a lot of other things done, one of which was to fit some new bumper plastic pieces underneath. We've had a couple of those along the way. They tend to break if you drive the car and catch them on anything. Thankfully, they're not too expensive. We also had some new front brake pads. Now, thankfully, the discs here still have plenty of life left because they will be quite expensive, but the pads, obviously just a relatively simple, not too expensive thing to get sorted. However, one thing we did need was a new battery, which I think is over towards the other side. The battery was a little bit over £1,000, not doing what it should. A bit unfortunate. And we also had to get a new actuator for the fuel filler flap. Now, I always love the way that looks, especially against the blue paint, but that just needed a new part that was on a little bit of back order. Come round to this side though, because something that's quite funny about this, right, that I can't believe I hadn't noticed for around 4 years of ownership, was that after doing the complete respray and putting the seats back in the car, we had put the seats in with the seat belt coming down here, down the outside. Now, with these seats, which are based on the pole position that you have in the AMGs, it's supposed to go through the edge like that. And I can't believe I'd never noticed it. Nobody had ever noticed it until after the Mille tour. So we fixed that, put them in the right way round. The next thing, you might remember on that trip in Italy, we were having some intermittent engine management lights coming on. It's something that tends to happen. The readouts weren't really giving any clear explanation for it, and they were coming and going. But it turned out to need a series of new lambda sensors. Again, some more expense for those. Also, as per driving lots of miles, we needed some new tyres. Now, conveniently, I had a set of the front Sport Cup 2s already, so I only needed to get a new set of the rears. So I got some new ones for the back. The front ones, I think, had come from the GT Black Series or one of the GTRs, because they all have the exact same Sport Cup 2 tyres, which is very convenient. And lastly, it needed an MOT. Add all of that together, and you've got quite the service bill. In fact, last year, I think it was around £10,000 of stuff that was needed. This year wasn't far off that again. It was about £5,000 or £6,000 all in to get it back, plus the tyres. New set of rear tyres, about £1,000 just for those. So that's not ideal. And that leads me on to the AMG GT Black Series, which you'll notice is absent right now. Normally that would sit up and the GT Black Series would be underneath. That car, I've done a lot of miles with it, right? It's been all around the world, it's done a ton of different trips and different things, and it's been driven very hard on racetracks. It needs new discs. New discs on an AMG aren't the worst. In fact, I guess it might even be similar to the parts on this one. But for the GT Black Series, they're only about £6,000 or £7,000 for the pair. I say only because on the McLarens or on the Ford GT or something, it's like 15,000. So 6 or 7 doesn't sound too horrific. It obviously needs new pads, it needs a service. It also had a small oil leak, which turns out to be from the power steering pump. You can't get a new seal, it's a new pump, again about £1,000. The investigation at Avant-Garde hasn't finished with that car, so I might still find out about more things that it needs. I've actually already got a new set of tyres for it that need to go on. But overall, it's not started particularly well. That is the downside of driving a lot and driving them very hard. But hey, it's what these cars are built for. This is where, of course, the car goes back onto its charger, and I'd like to say a thank you to CTEK. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know that CTEK have supported many of the different things we do. We have these, the CS1s, which are quite frankly amazing. Without these and all of their different attachments for plugging into the different cars, I would have some major battery issues. The simple fact is that with these cars and with something like this, it's now going to sit here for a while. It will be in storage. It's probably not going to drive for at least a month or two. And if I just left it, it would go very dead. The beauty of these is that they don't mind whether it's a lead acid or a lithium battery in the car. You can use the same charger. So we have them positioned behind each car. In fact, this is the one for the GT Black Series. Then you have all of the different extension cables. You have the clamps as well. And in fact, even down to the polarity of the clamps, if you have it the wrong way around, it doesn't matter. It can work it out. So these are, quite frankly, incredible for preserving and maintaining the batteries, for making sure that everything keeps up and running. So I really want to say a big thank you to CTEK, because honestly, without those, we'd have a lot of problems here. A lot of problems, and they would be very expensive to replace. If you're wondering why there's a random set of furniture up on the top of the Benpack Auto Stacker, that's actually my sister's. She is currently moving house and asked if we could hold on to some of her furniture before the full move into the new property is done, so we figured we'd just put it up there. That explains that one if you've been wondering. After building my dream garage then, we need to talk about this. build your dreams. You might have just guessed it. What's underneath this cover is, let's take a look, the BYD Seal. This is the Seal 3.8S Excellence all-wheel drive in ice blue. This is, of course, from BYD, who I joined actually to go out to one of the Euro 2024 matches to watch England play in Germany. But this is my new daily driver. I have already done a couple of 100 miles on it, and I have been seriously impressed. I want to tell you a little bit more about this particular car. So we've got a 390 kilowatt, 523 horsepower, all-wheel drive model. This is with an 83.5 kilowatt hour battery, which is good for about 350 miles of range. This has always been the big thing with electric cars, right? The driving range. I think it looks really smart as well. We've got a full panoramic roof. I'll show you inside in just a second. But one thing I find quite funny, if you come to the back, is actually the badging. It is quite literally the BYD Seal 3.8S. The 3.8S literally stands for the time it takes to get to 100 kilometers an hour. It's 3.8 seconds. That's 62 miles an hour, which is quite fun that it says that. It packs a good punch. Of course, it's about 2.2 tons in total. Let me show you inside though. Unlock the car, door handles pop out. For £48,500 or so, this is really smart. We've got the black leather interior. It's a vegan leather, I should say. We've got a lot of technology. I'll step in and show you through some of the screens and displays in a moment. But a ton of comfort. Really, really smart. And even actually when I was driving it the other day, I drove past two teenagers at the side of the road, and one pointed at the car and said, "What is that?" And, you know, that's the kind of impression that I would expect. And the other guy immediately replied, "That's one of the new BYDs." I was impressed that people actually already knew a little bit more about it. There are some lovely styling cues going on at the front. I know Yanni filmed one the other day as well over on the Yanimai's channel, but it's an interesting car for many reasons. Let me show you a little bit more inside it. Come and take a look in here then. Inside the BYD Seal. Of course, it's an electric car, so everything is in kind of electric car style, but a little bit more familiar than that with a very cool touch from this screen. You might have seen this before. We're down now to 26%, but we still have 82 miles of range, and you genuinely do have that range. With the button here though, or if you press here on the screen, have a look at this. It's quite fun that you can rotate this enormous tablet. I'm not the biggest fan of enormous literal iPads in the center of cars like this, but when you do connect it to Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, obviously it does the job neatly. And inside there's a great sound system. I have to give it props for that. It works very well. These seats, these sports seats, are super comfortable. You've got two wireless charging pads, you've got NFC, you've got lots of creature comforts, you've got different driving modes. I've been basically driving it in normal, but you've got sport and eco, depending which setting you'd like to have it in. All in all, I've been very impressed by this thing. I like using it a lot already, and I'm looking forward to many more miles out on the roads with it to be able to tell you a little bit more as we go ahead and continue enjoying it as the daily driver in the upcoming period. We're going from electric to the noisiest combustion engine in the garage. The spreadsheet says that the GT8 needs a drive. The 2-month rule, it's got to be taken out. So I'm going to go take this for a quick blast. Cold start coming right up, tunnel run coming up, and then I'm going to explain what's happening here in our Duro Workshop corner when we get back. There is literally one absolute must place that this car has to go every time you take it out. And firstly, that's to stretch the legs and listen to this soundtrack, because it is absolutely ludicrous. Can you believe this is nearly 8 years old now? I've got about 12,500 miles on it. I don't drive it all that much anymore, and it is a conversation we need to have, because needs must, and maybe, well, something that I don't want to say farewell to is potentially going to have to leave the collection. However, we do need to bring it, as always, to the tunnel. The famous tunnel. Window down a touch, start to drop down the gears. That 4.7 litre naturally aspirated V8 up front, the titanium exhaust behind. Every time! It's so silly! I'm going to slow it down a touch. I hope the other people around me are car people, otherwise they might not be particularly happy with this right now. It's ridiculous. This is under the speed limit. This is absolutely silly. It will never get boring. It will never, ever, 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 ever get boring. I gotta say, electric cars can't do that, can they? Oh my goodness. Let's get it back. We've got it up to temps. It's had a nice little stretch. It is fun to drive this, but a couple more cars to tell you about, and new cars to tell you about. Firstly, though, I mentioned we'd talk about what's going on over here, because this is Brad's 124, which has been having quite some extensive work. Brad and a few other people have been cracking on with this, taking the suspension out, reverting it to stock, seats out, shifter out, tons of other stuff. Obviously, the wheels are off, on the bend pack quick jacks, which we use often here. And while I'm not necessarily grinding away at my own cars, you see why we have a workshop. The Dura cabinets that were all installed, gosh, nearly a year ago now. There's a ton of stuff around here that we should probably get sorting out at some point soon. Anyway, let's skip to the other missing cars though. The two missing Fords, the GT. The GT was of course in Arizona for the GT Rally, Rally 14. That was phenomenal, to be driving with all of the other Ford GTs, new and old. And after that, we then drove it up to Las Vegas, only a couple of hours away. And it's now been shipped over from Vegas all the way across the country again to Florida. I'm gonna be back in Florida in December, most likely, for some final things with the GT, because I now have a plan. It's been absent from here since April. So it's nearly a year. It's been gone for what, 7 or 8 months at this point in time. And I'd like to get it home. So after Florida, it's going to be popping back into a container on a boat, bring it back to the UK. The other car that's out in the United States is my Mustang Dark Horse, which I actually left in the area of Washington, DC. So I need to go out, get it from there down to Florida. Maybe we transport it, maybe we drive it, maybe we stop along the way, because there are a ton of interesting places between DC and getting down to Orlando and Miami. But obviously that car stays permanently in the US. I thought for a while it might be fun to bring it over, to have the Dark Horse with the GT500 perhaps, but it doesn't make sense. So of course it's going to leave at some point, probably in 2025, but for the time being it's got 14,000 miles on it. It's going pretty well, don't worry about that. The only other missing car is the 914, but we'll have an update on that in the coming days, and the actual car, of course, not just the interior parts that are here, so stay tuned for that one. Let's talk new cars. I come over to the Ferraris because in the not very distant future, this beautiful blue Electrico SF90 will become very green. The SF90 XX Stradale will arrive. Having recently introduced the specification to you guys, this will be departing. I would love to keep my SF90 Stradale. It's hard to imagine, but this is about to have its 3rd anniversary. I don't know how it's been 3 years of ownership of this car, but hey, time has flown by. Now, what I don't know exactly is when that car is going to arrive. It's actually going into production about the time of this video, but because it's a very atelier-based spec, that means there are a lot of bespoke things that add a little bit of time. So I don't think it's going to arrive before New Year, probably some point early in the new year. What's the most interesting, however, is that it's not only about that, it's about the other one that has an engine kind of similar to the one that's in there. 12 cilindri, the 12-cylinder, the not 12-cylindry. Never say 12-cylindry. That car is sooner than we thought. It might even come before the XX. We have to wait and see exactly how this plays out, because every single week the timetables have kind of changed, but it's exciting. Other cars beyond those two? Well, there might be 3 others. You know about the GTD, which should be in 2025, I think in the USA. But the other 2, one here, which might come before either of the Ferraris. Yep, haven't told you much about it yet. It's big and bright, I'll tell you that. The other, next year, something I've talked about for many, many, many years, but I'm looking forward to telling you more about. I can't say too much right now. There's a lot that needs to be agreed first. Anyway, lots coming soon. Another topic of discussion I've seen a lot, particularly in terms of the Ferrari Roma, is the question around whether this and the other Ferraris are just to try and get the F80, the LaFerrari successor. Hold what you think about that car for a second. It's a funny world where if you think about these 4 Ferraris and 1 or 2 more once the others have arrived, that doesn't put me anywhere close to Ferrari's top 800 customers. There are a lot of people with a lot more Ferraris than that, so even if I did want to go for an F80, it's not an option. It's not a possibility. Not to mention the fact that it's about £3 million. 3.6 euros, $4 million. It's my entire collection, including the, GT8, 675, SLS Black, GT Black, all of this lot, the Zenvo, the Ford GT, all of the current Ferraris, and only about 50% more. So you can probably do some quick maths on that one. The other interesting question is to do with the McLarens and the W1. Of course, I recently sold the Senna. It was only 8 months ago that we actually said farewell to it properly. The 675 LT right here also meant that, of course, having these cars, I have a communication with McLaren, and I did have the opportunity to go for a W1, but similarly, £2 million. And I'm not in that position. So there's not likely to be another hypercar. That's what I'm telling you now. The SF90XX is, for me, pretty extreme already. It's about £800,000 of the specification. We'll dive more into that down the line. And it's a pretty extreme car. And if I can say so myself, the SF90XX is actually seriously cool. As the Ferrari range right now goes, looks mega, V8, massive power. I'm super excited about it. And the Stradale is as rare as the F80 Coupe. They've not officially announced the Spider or an Aperta of the F80, but it will probably come down the line. So that's what's happening on the Ferrari front, and I guess the hypercar front. I want to move this quickly. I need to put the GT8 back under the lift. But when I drive the BYD Seal forwards, the noise it makes, I have never heard before. Electric car life. The CTEK Charger, to be fair, hasn't had a whole lot of use recently. We installed the ChargeStorm Connected 2, which can charge 2 cars at 22 kilowatts back when we moved in here. But obviously, having rewired it in, we now want to go and get this plugged in properly. And we've got, in the BYD Seal, 11 kilowatt charging. So you can do 150 kilowatt charging if you're at a rapid charger off on the road somewhere. But here, if I take the cap off, we can charge it decently. I think it takes like 7 or 8 hours to get that from 0 to full, which isn't bad if we get 350 miles of range out of it. Case in point, look at this. 26%, 6 hours, 25 minutes remaining. No problems. Another really nice detail about the Seal, look at the lights. The tail light design is really cool. The front ones as well. If I lock it, just bring those back on for a few more seconds. What you get for the money with this, less than 50K in a world where cars are getting really expensive. That's pretty good value. New cars, I mean, this is a whole other topic, but new car prices are getting really, really, really high. And while I'm lucky to have a couple of new cars coming, it's probably less than in recent years. The collection has grown a lot. If you go back 3 years ago to when we moved into the Shmuseum, I think I had 11 cars. Now it's over 20. And with a few more coming, we're going to have to say goodbye to some things. Some cars are going to have to go. The Emira has already departed. The Dark Horse will leave for GTD. The SF90 will leave for XX. But some other things are going to have to move from the channel. So we'll have some updates about those as well. For now, do not forget that we have Shmoo the Cow back. In the Shmoo 150 eBay shop, you can grab your Shmoo the Cow right now. They are back in stock. They will probably go again as we build up towards Christmas, but do get one right now if you would like. I'd like to say a big thank you as well to BYD. The car, of course, comes from BYD, and I'm looking forward to many miles with that. But yeah, there's a content mix to come. Occasional garage updates like this every couple of months, but focusing on videos I know you guys really want to see. That's what I want to share with you, the stuff that gets us all as excited as possible when it comes to cars. If you like these kinds of videos though, check out the one right over there. But that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers!